At 4 a.m, fire alarms tore through the silence. We raced out of bed and into the hallway. Down in the lobby, flames roared from the top floor. A man jumped from his balcony, striking the ground with a sickening impact. But that was nothing compared to what unfolded that morning. I live in an old apartment building. I've been here for about 2 years, and my roommate and I have had very few scary experiences, except for one that happened last summer. It was around 4 in the morning when we were woken from a dead sleep by the fire alarms going off throughout our entire 4-storey building. Since this place is mostly occupied by seniors, we assumed someone had left a pot on the stove again. I grumbled and blindly grabbed a blanket. Last time there was a false alarm, I'd been left shivering and barefoot on the sidewalk, waiting for the fire department. I wasn't going to let that happen again. My roommate and I put on our shoes. I grabbed my phone and keys. We poked our heads out into the hallway. Nothing seemed off. The hallway was empty, and no one else had come out of their apartments yet. Reluctantly, we walked down the hallway toward the lobby, expecting our neighbours to follow suit. It wasn't until we went through the lobby and out the front door that we realised that something was actually wrong. A handful of people who had already come out of the building were running and shouting. The building was actually on fire this time. We followed them around to the side of the building. More and more people fled in their pyjamas. To our horror, we saw an apartment on the top floor belching out flames. People were frantic, searching for water, a ladder, anything. Someone mentioned that a lady lived in the apartment who had mobility issues. She needed to be rescued. And where the hell were the fire department? My roommate was disturbed by the scene, so we decided to go back to the front of the building, away from the fire. On our way, we saw a guy jump off his balcony to the ground. He rolled when he landed, but it still hurt. He sat on the grass, groaning for a while. Luckily, he was only on the 2nd floor. There was chaos, yelling, screaming, a mix of panic and disinterest. Some seniors didn't want to leave because using the stairs was difficult. The fire department arrived faster than ever before, since this was a real emergency. Elderly ladies in nightgowns were rescued via ladders and wheeled off to the hospital next door. At one point, the man who lived below the apartment on fire had a screaming episode at one of the landlords, the one who looked like a walking skeleton with an oxygen tank and a scooter. By the time the fire was under control, it was around 6 or 7 a.m. The sun was up and people were starting their morning commute. The fire department had blocked off the entire street. The building residents sat on the curb in pyjamas and blankets. Little kids, old people, broke college students, the works. The community pulled together that morning. The public bus service gave us buses to sit and warm up. Paramedics handed out blankets and checked injuries. People in surrounding houses brought water and snacks. One lady even bought a tray of tea from her own kitchen and offered it to anyone nearby. My mum came down to rescue my roommate and me, even though she lived an hour outside of town. She hadn't even showered yet, but she brought breakfast and a change of clothes, since we didn't know when we were allowed back inside. The most disturbing detail came while waiting on the bus. Everyone was talking about the fire, but one man added something horrifying. He heard the lady whose apartment caught fire never made it out. We suspected as much, given her mobility issues. Apparently, the firefighters found her in the hall. She had made it out of her apartment, but couldn't escape the smoke. We didn't know if she died from the smoke inhalation or burns. Someone standing outside reportedly heard her screaming, "Help me, I'm burning." I've always been afraid of burning to death, and imagining my neighbour's fate is deeply disturbing. The man who lived below her heard her screaming. He wouldn't stop talking about it. I think he ended up with some form of PTSD, and I don't blame him. We were brought to a community centre. Firefighters and emergency volunteers helped us understand the situation. Everyone was kind and sympathetic, providing whatever we needed. It was surreal. We had almost nothing. My roommate hadn't grabbed her phone, so she borrowed mine to let her family know she was okay. No money, no ID, no essentials, and no idea how long we'd be out of our homes. I hadn't been so happy to have my mum with me in a long time. Even though I tried not to show it, I felt like a scared little girl. We were lucky. The fire happened on the opposite end of the building from us. Our unit was unaffected, and we were allowed back the same day. The building stank of smoke for weeks. The fire was in a single apartment on the 4th floor, but the damage was extensive. Even the ground floor walls were blackened with ash. When they started repairs, they found asbestos in the walls. Some people had to move out, even those who had lived there for 30 years. I remember the night we returned. I boxed up all my most important possessions to keep in my car, thinking the building might catch fire again. My home didn't feel safe for weeks. We heard little about the fire's cause. Last I heard, a space heater was blamed, but I'm not sure. In the days following, the fire made the front page of the local paper. The family who lived down the hall from us were pictured. The article called the man a hero for attempting to save the lady upstairs. It was a valiant effort, but he couldn't have done more without risking himself. I feel sorry for him. I no wonder if guilt keeps him up at night. Sometimes I think about the lady who passed away. I listen to ghost stories, and I wonder if her spirit haunts the building. Her sudden and horrifying death could make a ghost linger, so much left unfinished. I hope she's at peace, and that my neighbours have found some peace too. 4 months later, life returned to some sense of normalcy. Things were mostly back to how they were before, if you ignore the orange tarps, restoration vans, and security guards in the lobby. The damaged wing remains closed due to asbestos. For those on the other end, life was relatively normal. I hope it stays that way. The shadows have claimed this video, but there's more waiting. Hit like and subscribe and reveal the fear that lingered. Stay close, and I'll see you in the next one.